Welcome, everyone, to Sunday at Stan Lee's Los Angeles Comic-Con. This is the day when, after 4 more panels, my voice starts to sound like this. I am Chris Gore. I am the editor of Film Threat, filmthreat.com, and the co-host of the Film Threat podcast with Anthony Ray Bench.
How's it going, everybody?
Down on the end. We thank you for your attendance and apologize about the mix-up with the room. So I'm glad that you finally made it, but it also reminds me that the movie with Tommy Wiseau is here. So we were just at Tommy's booth and picked up some very inexpensive merch from the room, which I think is going to blow up after The Disaster Artist comes out later this year.
Yeah,
so,
it's definitely going to gain a whole new audience,
yeah,
I'm sure.
This is so Tommy's selling stuff where you can you buy a t-shirt, you buy $20 worth of stuff, you get a free backpack. It's that's not a plug. It is a plug.
It is a plug.
It is a plug. He deserves it. But that's not the subject of our panel. Our panel is we're going to be talking about the major franchises, the state of those franchises, and additionally, kind of a new movement that we've observed in indie film of lo-fi, sci-fi, and lo-fi horror films. People that are making movies on the cheap with their phones and just whatever resources they have at their disposal. But I want to introduce our esteemed panel and have each of our panelists say a little bit about themselves, and we'll just go down the line, starting right here with my good friend. And actually, I will say this: everyone on this panel is a good friend of mine. So I just said, what friends want to come to LA Comic-Con, get a badge, and just do a panel on a Sunday that no one will attend? And all of them said yes, and so here they all are. And I was like, all of our other panels that we've done this weekend were packed, and this one just happens to be near the end of the con.
Because you gave them the wrong room.
And I also gave the wrong room, and I'm making excuses, and I shouldn't do that on the show. But let me start with my good friend Jim Agnew. Jim, tell us about yourself.
I'm a writer and producer, and just directed a lo-fi sci-fi film Chris is talking about. So I know a little bit about the film business. Probably done about $30 million worth of films producing and writing. So yeah, I know a few things. I've also seen how you can get ripped off and everything else.
Well, what's the name of your film?
I just directed a film called The Capture, which was a small, like Chris said, lo-fi sci-fi film. We're trying to set up a company to actually make more of those films that are smart, cerebral science fiction that really sci-fi fans enjoy, with no special effects, more, Twilight Zones, Outer Limits type of situations.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cliff Stevenson.
Hello.
Also a good friend.
What do you want to know?
Like I say, they're all good friends, but Cliff, tell everyone about yourself.
I am a special features producer for DVDs and Blu-rays and do documentaries, behind the scenes kind of stuff. Did the 3 seasons of Hannibal, just recently did American Gods, Rambo, Hunger Games, bunch of that stuff. So I'm good at documenting what goes on in a movie.
Great. Matt Kyle.
I'm a producer and writer. I worked at G4 and X-Play for many, many years, so I know TV more than film in terms of making it, but Chris and I have spent many an NFL Sunday just talking about movies for hours and not paying attention to the football games. So I like to come in and banter about Marvel once in a while and Star Wars.
Matt, look, we're at a nerd convention. Let's not talk about sports ball. Let's just keep that. Let's keep that hidden.
I just ate at lunch at the Yard House. It's sports everywhere over there. I couldn't get away.
And Paul Osborne, right? Paul's next.
Yes, I'm next.
Paul Osborne is here. Paul, tell everyone about yourself.
I'm an independent filmmaker. I made a film called Favor, and another film called 10 Till Noon. I have one called Cruel Hearts coming out, but the one that Chris is going to always talk about is Official Rejection, which is a documentary about filmmakers suffering at film festivals that I made Chris appear in. And Chris was kind enough to do the commentary track on the DVD, during which he had to take a pee break.
Right.
Which I didn't edit out, by the way.
No, leave it in. Leave
No,
it in.
it's
But
totally in
no.
there.
Yeah, Paul and I do the commentary, and it's a great. If you've never taken a movie on the festival circuit, official rejection is like taking a class, with all the extras.
There's
and
several
everything.
colleges that actually use it. They've replaced their film festival classes with the movie.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we have a whole educational. It's a pretty huge honor, yeah.
But it's also entertaining. It's also entertaining because it shows you all the things that can go wrong when you take a film on the festival circuit.
Yeah, we did. We approached it like a comedy because basically, look, it's a voluntary art form. We're not saving babies from burning buildings. So it's like we're submitting ourselves to the torture. So if you don't take it with a grain of salt and laugh at yourself, it's sad.
Cool. And also joining us, my co-host Anthony Ray Bench. Do you have anything to say about yourself, or?
Yeah, subscribe to our podcast.
All of you.
Yeah, all of you. I'm the producer and co-host of the Film Threat podcast, and I also write reviews for Film Threat.
Cool. And Alan is here.
Yes, I write reviews for Film Threat as well. I'm the shorts editor, so I write reviews that are actually longer than the films I watch.
Right. In some cases, that's true, because you've written a whole slew of reviews, short film reviews recently that are hitting the site. So thank you for that. Yeah, Alan's one of our more prolific writers where, gosh, every week there's like a couple at least of your reviews on the site. So
Yeah, they're stacking up too, so
Yeah.
you got more coming.
yes, good. Well, and what I also love about the stuff that you offer really good insights into all of these, because you'll review the stuff that's more mainstreamish and then the other stuff that's more underground. So it's a good balance.
Yes, I'm deathly afraid of horror films, so I try to stay away from those.
Well, let's talk about films we're deathly afraid of. Justice League opens on November 17th, and I fear for the DC universe. So I want to ask everyone on our panel here, and just everyone jump in on this. I feel like Marvel's got this formula that works, right? Whether you love it or hate it, Marvel's formula works, and a lot of it is kind of, Anthony and I were having a discussion, because when you're at a convention like this, all you do is talk about this stuff. It's like the podcast that never ends. But, we were talking about how Marvel's got this formula that is almost like the comic books. I mean, the Marvel sort of post-credits ending, that's like the last panel that shows you Galactus will be back or something.
Yeah,
I mean,
the next, the set for the next issue.
Right. There's always some sort of setup for the next issue when the Marvel movies set up for the next, film. I don't know. For some reason, DC didn't just jump on that. But where did the DC is anyone excited about Justice League? Because I begrudgingly purchased my tickets, and I almost feel the same way I felt about Batman v Superman when I saw it, which was, let's just get this over with. So, but don't go by what I think. What does everyone on the panel think about these giant tentpole franchises and where they may go wrong? I mean, what I think they did well, at least with Batman, the Christian Bale Batman films and Christopher Nolan, is they brought in an indie director who had done small films focused on character and story, and kind of, applied that philosophy to doing a big summer tentpole. I'm not sure that's exactly what they're doing with DC, but for any of you guys, I want just everyone to just jump in and tell me your thoughts on DC and Justice League.
The error they're making on the DC movies in large part, other than Zack Snyder not really understanding what a superhero does, I think part of the problem is Marvel is making kind of the version of their characters. Like what you see on the screen in the Marvel movies is the purest form of what those characters are, whereas DC's trying to reinvent their characters to be like some kind of darker, modern, edgier sort of, they're kind of trying to turn everybody into Watchmen a little bit.
Yeah.
And I feel like people just want to see Superman and just want to see, I kind of want to see 40-something retired Batman. I want to see Batman in his prime, mixing it up with all these Justice League people. Why isn't it like the DC animated universe? Like the DC animated stuff that Bruce Timm and Paul Dini did back in the day are the quintessential version of those characters, and I'd love to see that on the big screen, and Warner Brothers doesn't seem to want to give that to me.
I have a theory. I think that they saw the success of the Dark Knight trilogy, and they equated that film's success with the darker tone, the more serious, realistic stuff. So that's where they're going with their films, and I think that they're starting to realize, okay, that doesn't work for certain characters. We need to steer the ship fast. But a part of me thinks it's like trying to, steer the Titanic away from the iceberg. It's too little, too late. I want Justice League to be a good movie. I'm cautiously optimistic. Nothing from the trailers has kind of sent out a red flag for me. But then again, all of the DC movies have great trailers. I have to disagree with Matt, though. I love the 47-year-old Batman that's ready to retire, because I think we've seen the 20-year-old Batman, and
I'm not saying I want another origin story, but I want to see. I mean, the one thing I really liked in Batman versus Superman was the fight in the warehouse where Batman rescues.
Oh yeah. That was the best scene, hands down.
And I mean, other than the fact that he kills like 5 people, but but that was Batman fighting to me. And for the first time in a live action, it wasn't an actor in a suit where he couldn't turn his head. It was Batman fighting a bunch of bad guys, and that's the kind of thing I love to see. I just love to see Batman in his prime along with all these other characters.
But I think the bigger issue, which speaks to what you're saying, is that DC clearly saw what Marvel did, and they saw this pattern that Marvel had created. And rather than doing what Marvel actually did, which was take your time, create these movies one at a time, and get to Avengers, they reverse engineered Justice League to be Man of Steel, then Man of Steel 2, which turned into Batman v Superman. And they didn't give these characters proper introductions, time to develop, time to coalesce this universe before they immediately jumped in with how many characters can we all jam into this one movie, because we have to get to that pot of gold as quickly as possible. And so you don't get all of these character moments. You don't get the Batman movie that you want to see that sets up who Batman is, that really establishes what his world and what his job and what his... Like, one of the things I hated about Batman v Superman was you get Wonder Woman... There's no explanation at all what her capabilities are, what her powers are, who she is, where she comes from. There's nothing. They set up this huge mystery that's not really a mystery, but then they don't really explain it. So by the time she's fighting at the end, you kind of go, if you don't know Wonder Woman, you kind of go, I don't understand who she is. I don't understand what she's capable of. I don't know why she's here. They've made it a big deal, except they were depending on the audience to do all the legwork ahead of time before you even walked into the theater. Had Wonder Woman come before Batman v Superman, I think that all plays off much more strongly, because you now have a connection to these characters. If we would have gotten a Ben Affleck Batman before Batman v Superman, then when they all finally come together, like they did with, I mean, how many? I think there was 6 movies maybe before Avengers.
Yeah, 5, I think.
5? So, and we got 1 before Batman v Superman?
Well, also, you hit on something there I think is also true, where, in terms of making the audience do the legwork ahead of time, and it just kind of occurred to me, it feels like DC or Warner Brothers is assuming we're sick of these characters as they exist normally. It's like they're automatically assuming we don't want to see another Christopher Reeve style Superman because we've already seen that. And it's like, no, I could kind of use that a little bit right now. It's kind of why I like Captain America, is he's cheesy and maybe unrealistic in terms of his idealism, but that's what makes him a hero. And Superman kind of begrudgingly saving people and acting like he's, it's like taking time out of his day to rescue
Right, he's already tired of being Superman. He hasn't even started yet.
And all the people come up to touch him, and he's just like, "Yeah, I know. Yes, I want to go home for dinner with Lois or something." It seems like even Superman doesn't want to be there, and I just don't get that charge out of it that Marvel gives me.
But don't audiences, with what's going on in the world, want to escape into a really dark and depressing world like the DC movie universe?
Well,
it's too happy out there.
Well, I think if you can use the characters to create a light spot in that darkness, like they did in Wonder Woman in the No Man's Land scene, which is one of the great superhero scenes of all time, in my opinion, where this is this very dark, oppressive atmosphere she's in, and she's like, I'm going to do the thing I think is right and what I do, and she gets up there and does it, and it's great. And there's almost none of that in the rest of the DC movies.
One thing I'll say is that what Marvel is doing right is they have a guy who's overseeing the entire universe, Kevin Feige. While it feels like DC has a corporation overseeing the entire universe.
Paul Osborne is making a motion to his nose.
That's exactly what it is. It's corporate. It's a corporate slot being filmed.
Yeah, so films are feeling like they're being made as a business decision as opposed to a story. I mean, what I like about Disney, Marvel, Pixar is that they're willing to kill projects because they're not able to develop them well.
Yeah.
You know, they wanted to make an Inhumans movie, and they realized this is going to be a crappy movie, and so they shut it down. And then the TV department decided to say, hey, let's take on this crappy project.
And they made a crappy TV show.
You know
They
what?
ran it in IMAX.
Yeah.
Yeah, good choice.
And it failed.
To what Paul's saying, you can tell like by a movie like Suicide Squad, it's made by committee.
Oh, yeah.
Every
Yeah.
element is amazing. They got a great director, yet it makes zero sense.
Right.
It's like 800 people, 800
Yeah.
cooks in the kitchen.
And let's not forget that Warner Brothers is the company that last year started taking down their own websites with copyright infringement strikes. Like they don't know what, the other. It was like from like September last year.
Wow.
They were shutting down a bunch of copyright infringing sites that were using their property, and a bunch of the sites were their own sites from other departments at Warner Brothers.
Synergy.
There's no communication or synergy happening there.
Wow. So the consensus of the panel is, and I will just say, want to just get Justice League over with, because it looks like to me, from the last few trailers, the entire movie is shot on a green screen. Mm-hmm. It just feels that way, where the just the way that people don't move like they would, it seems, in reality.
Well, when the first
Looks
trailer
like a cartoon.
came out, and it had Bruce Wayne up in like the mountains and stuff, and
Right.
the marketing people were like, "Yeah, we went and shot that in Iceland. We went to mountains and shot." I'm like, "Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do in a movie, is go shoot stuff."
Thank you for
somewhere."
doing the bare minimum, Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
See, we had this conversation in June when Wonder Woman came out. And this will not make everybody happy, but to me, Wonder Woman's a very good movie. It's not a great movie.
Yeah,
It's a
I agree
great
with that.
DC movie, but it's a tier 1 Marvel movie. I mean, it's on the same level as like First Avenger, where it's like, all right, this is kind of the level that you're at this point, except that's the level we were all at 6 or 7 years ago.
It even features a guy named Steve getting into a German airplane at the end with a very bad outcome.
So I've not seen anything from Justice League that I go, oh, they get it. They clearly get it. They've moved this around. I still think they're moving too fast. I think we should have gotten more Superman stories before we got to this point. We should get maybe another Wonder Woman before we get to this point.
Do you think Whedon is going to help at all?
I hope so.
I think he'll make it better than probably what it would have been.
Yeah.
Well, let's switch from this to Marvel. What's Marvel doing right? Aside from the fact that I do feel that they seek out directors. When you look at the previous work of directors, with Scott Derrickson, who did Doctor Strange, James Gunn, who did, of course, Guardians of the Galaxy, to the director whose name I can't pronounce, who did Thor, and Anthony and you and I saw
Waititi.
Thor. What's his name?
Taika Waititi.
Taika Waititi. So he, so they take these directors that come from indie film, right? I mean, they mostly come from doing things that are low budget. You would not have hired any of these directors if you were looking, at least on the surface, to do a tentpole summer movie with a $100 million plus budget. So is that part of what they're doing? Is it Kevin Feige, as you pointed out,
also,
Alan?
to the earlier point, they're not unwilling to launch a director that doesn't fit in with the overall vision. They will get rid of Edgar Wright, who's an amazing director on Ant-Man, which was something he clearly loved, because what he wanted to do didn't fit into the overall tapestry that they were trying to create. So I think that it's both finding the right directors and knowing when that director is going to steer you off the course that you've set for yourself.
Yeah, I just
think
wonder
they
if
trust
it's
their source material. That's part of the big difference between the two. Is Marvel trusts their source material. They're like, this stuff's been around since the '60s, and there's a reason it's been around since the '60s. We don't need to reinvent it. We can just do it well.
Yeah, because they have confidence. I was thinking about that the other day. Ego is a character in a Marvel film. That's like a Z-level comic book character, but they had no problem just going with it, running with it.
Or Guardian. I mean, when I read comic books since 1979, when they announced the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, I had to look it up. Like, I had no idea what those characters were, but I love them. They made me care. That's what they do.
Yeah, meanwhile in DC, we're getting Jimmy Olsen killed off because there's no place for him.
And then it was, I think Snyder said that he thought that would be funny to shoot
Yeah.
Jimmy Olsen in the head in the first 5 minutes of the Batman
Yeah.
Superman movie.
I mean, there does seem to be, at least Marvel as compared to DC more of a respect for the source material. That Marvel seems to have a respect to where they're doing really deep cuts when it comes to even minor characters and then giving them their due. I feel like what they get right, because I don't think it really matters the accuracy of the costume or how they update that or they update it to contemporary times. What Marvel, I think, has done best is the essence of the character. That's that character. No one else.
Tone. Marvel gets tone.
Yeah, they get the tone. That is Captain America. That could only be Captain America. That's, Tony Stark they kind of changed a little bit from the comics, but he fits into that. Like Doctor Strange, same thing. And then you see what they suffer to get to the place where they become that hero. So
It's weird. There's a level of freedom too. I mean, Thor Ragnarok looks like a comedy, while Black Panther is starting to look like a really cool kick-ass movie.
Yeah, like almost like a spy movie.
Yeah, almost like a James Bond in a costume.
Well, also, that's the interesting thing about that is okay, so Thor is basically a buddy comedy picture, and then they're following that with Black Panther, which is a $100+ million Afrofuturist superhero film, and it's like. It's amazing. Like it's.
There's so many of those, though.
There's a fearlessness. Yeah. There's a fearlessness.
Yeah, the market's
to Marvel
overflooded.
that makes it work, I think.
Yeah, like in fact, we were just talking about when we were at Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con, and the Infinity War trailer showed, and audiences went nuts, and then the Black Panther footage showed, and that got a standing ovation. It's so different than a previous Marvel movie, and it sets up a world that I think mostly what people want to see when they go see these tentpole films is they want to see something they haven't seen before with characters on adventures, characters they already love on adventures going places we've never been.
And even better, they've already introduced Black Panther in Civil War, so we don't need to go through the whole "who is this guy" introduction. We can just get straight to it.
Right, and then also Kevin Feige has said we're not going to be doing origin stories in the Marvel Universe anymore. Doesn't mean that I don't think that they'll do origins. Just as a longtime reader of the Marvel comics and the issues of the Fantastic Four, the early ones, they would always retell the origin of the Fantastic Four for about the first 25 or 30 issues because they didn't really have the confidence that people had read the previous issues to know what their origin was. So there'd be a little recap of, remember when we went in the spaceship and we got hit by the cosmic rays and we got the superpowers. So I always think that just showing an origin and a flashback is a perfectly valid way. You don't need an origin story. Like, here's what happened, and you probably already know most of this, but frankly, Fantastic Four has one of the lamest origins of the, we got hit by things and now we got powers. That's our origin.
I never need to see how Spider-Man, the Hulk, Batman, or Superman became a hero ever again. I know. We know.
Yeah,
That was one of the best things about Spider-Man Homecoming was the fact that there was no origin story.
Right. They just jumped right into Peter Parker's
They
crazy
recap
life.
with like 2 dialogue lines.
Yeah.
Did the spider bite hurt? Yes. Where's the spider? Can I get bit by him? He's dead. Oh, that was it.
And do you lay eggs?
Huh? Yeah. Can you lay eggs? That was a great sequence.
So what are your guys' thoughts on Infinity War? I have one.
Can't wait.
Okay, I think everyone can't wait. Can't wait. Yeah. I predict one character, major Marvel character, will die. And I don't mean like they die in the comics where it's like this issue Robin dies.
Or
and
the
then
other movies where they always kill somebody and they're back by the end.
Right, exactly. Yes.
Or like the way Superman died in
The zero stakes death.
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Infinity War may end up being one of the most expensive movies of all time simply because of the talent contracts, not because of the special effects or epic scale of it, just because of the number of actors, big actors in it. But
I don't think Marvel and Disney care about that. I mean, I think they care, but I think Infinity War is their crown jewel. I think that is the thing that they have been building towards. Because think about it, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they're not even 10 years old yet. I mean,
Right.
Iron Man is 2008. We're not even 10 years since the first, sort of official
yeah.
Marvel movie. They've been spending that entire 10 years building really to Infinity War.
Right.
So to me, I don't see this as one of those like, well, how are we going to save money and how are we going to do this? Like, you don't gather that many actors, that many high-profile, high-paycheck actors in all of these various roles, knowing that eventually you're going to have to put them all into one movie and be like, but how can we save a little money and maybe we can we'll recast
No, you have to
this
look at an
guy.
Avengers like before, where it's like we just got to blow it out
Yeah.
and trust that the audience will come.
Yeah.
But it is kind of based on, those event comics that would cross over into other comics, those things that would happen over the course of a year, like Secret Wars or Crisis on Infinite Earths, where they would take a comic series that has 12
Or Infinity
issues.
War.
Infinity War, yeah. It would cross over and affect every single character in that particular publishing line. But
And it's evolving too, because I mean, 2 years ago, you wouldn't. I'm trying to do the math, but I think 2 years ago, you would never have guessed Spider-Man would be in Infinity War. There's no way. Sony's got it. It's not going to happen. You're never going to have Spider-Man with the Avengers. You're never going to have him in Infinity War. And so this thing has evolved over the years to, I think, maybe even be bigger than Marvel was thinking it was going to be.
now we're going to make a bet, and I don't know what the stakes of the bet are going to be. We'll get back to it on the stakes, but I want each one of you to predict who's going to die or some major event that's going to happen in Infinity War, and I just a prediction. So I'll kick it off. Captain America's going to die. I think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be tragic. I think it's going to be in an act of self-sacrifice. There may be someone who takes on the mantle or the shield, but I think that doesn't mean that Chris Evans won't be in future Marvel movies in flashbacks, or they could even make another period Captain America movie. It doesn't mean there won't be Captain America movies, but the events in Infinity War are going to kill off Steve Rogers' Captain America. It's my prediction. You heard it here at Stan Lee's LA Comic-Con. What other predictions that you guys have? Deaths of characters or major events? I want to hear it. Maybe Peter Quill gets an iPod. What is going to be? I'm serious. I want to hear the predictions. I want to hear the predictions. Like, well, you guys, let's start with Jim and we'll go down. What are you predicting for Infinity War?
I think what Chris is saying is probably right, that either Captain America or Iron Man will die. But I also think they'll get rid of a secondary character, because I think the more characters they get rid of, the more they can bring in.
Oh,
in the future.
right.
That'd be my guess.
Cool. Cliff, what are your thoughts?
Yeah,
I want your real thoughts on this.
Initially, you think Iron Man, just because Robert Downey Jr. is clearly the most expensive. He's the one that is the oldest. He's the one that would sort of be the easiest to do away with and sort of still keep the universe. However, he's also the one that's most likely to go jump in a Spider-Man movie or do a quick cameo in a Hulk movie. So I think Captain America makes the most sense, it seems.
Yes, that's what I thought when we had our board meetings and we were all sitting
Yeah.
around the corporate table. And no, that's just my gut kind of tells me he would be the most tragic
No,
death.
especially after the way we left Civil War,
Right,
where they're at odds, and so you don't know how that comes back together. But there's also 2 movies, right?
Right.
I mean, we've got
Yeah,
2
Infinity War.
Infinity Wars, so
Right.
I heard that's changing.
is it?
Yeah. That,
What?
3 now?
That this one basically wraps up Thanos, and 4 is jumping off of Captain Marvel more.
What?
And we know what Captain Marvel
What?
introduces.
All right. I just wanted to point out that Cliff said I was right. But what, Matt, what do you think in terms of character deaths or events?
I think you're right, Captain America, in part because Sebastian Stan, who plays Bucky, has like 6 more movies in his contract, and he's gonna become Captain America. But I think Captain America will die, sacrifice himself to save Tony. To kind of complete that sort of arc from Civil War. I also think Thanos will die. Not that Thanos dying ever means anything, because he always comes back. He's the Mad Titan. He comes back. But there is also precedent for Captain America dying in the war, the fight against Thanos in the comics. I'll reverse the prediction a bit and say that I think Robert Downey Jr. will be in the Marvel movies until he quits or dies.
Until he actually
He
dies.
will.
Right.
He will become kind of a Professor X figure and sort of run things from behind the scenes. And every once in a while, one of the big Avengers crossover movies, Iron Man will show up, and that'll be the big audience like pop scene when like Tony has to come out of retirement and take care of business. That'll be a thing that goes
you
on.
could do it as VO
Yeah.
because
Because he doesn't have to show up. He just has to. He literally could read it into an iPhone and mail it to them.
And we could probably do digital, Robert Downey Jr. by that point. So
They did it in Civil War.
exactly.
Just don't make him young this time.
Yeah, Paul, any thoughts on this?
Well, other than the Captain America thing, which
So this is the 4th
it
person.
seems
that
pretty
says I'm
obvious
right.
to me that,
Yeah.
after Civil War. Well, my son tells me, he's 6, that Star Wars, because it's all Disney, Star Wars and Marvel have to cross over, so a piece of the Hulk's going to fall off and go, Yoda I am. That's what he wants. He wants that to happen. He says that the Hulk takes a dump and that's Yoda. And that's
The
how
X-Men
that.
could cross over with
and that's
Star
how
Wars.
that
I don't see
movie.
it.
That's how that. Kathleen Kennedy's listening to this podcast, going, "Oh my God, it's done. It's a done deal."
Yes. When do I fire the director?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
Yeah, Anthony.
I have 3 predictions for the Infinity War movie, and Chris knows one of them. I think that Vision is going to die. I think that Captain America is going to die because I think Robert Downey Jr. is way too expendable, or not expendable, and I think Chris Evans is expendable. And also, they have the whole comic book story of Bucky becoming Captain America, and I think they're going to set that up. The last one, and only like 2 people I've ever met have agreed with me, I think that Spider-Man's going to die. Because introducing Miles Morales is a very smart way to introduce more diversity into the Marvel universe. I think that he's either going to die and then come back at a certain point, or he's going to, fall into a portal and they're going to think that, he's dead and stuff like that. And I think that the next Spider-Man movie will be Miles Morales taking on the mantle of Spider-Man.
Are you saying that only because you didn't really like Homecoming that much?
Yeah.
Like, I hate Homecoming. Kill Spider-Man.
I think you're right, but I think that's 3 movies down the line.
Okay.
It's too soon.
I think
but I do hope that
Anthony,
happens.
too soon.
Yeah.
But I do hope that happens because they are setting the Miles Morales thing up, and that has to pay off eventually.
Wait, how are they
just
setting
think-
it up? Didn't you say you said there's some Easter egg in?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a reference to Miles Morales in Spider-Man: Homecoming. The character that Donald Glover plays is actually Miles Morales' uncle, a character called the Prowler. And he mentions, I don't want these weapons on the street because my nephew lives around here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's right.
He was great. I hope he comes back too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He was really good.
I think it would be really shocking and unexpected if Spider-Man dies in Infinity War, and that's. I honestly, I hope it happens.
I just feel we don't know Spider-Man well enough yet. I think we need to be more attached to him.
I feel like Infinity War is really going to revolve around him.
It could, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, since I'm the last one and everyone's given every idea that I had, I'm going to go for the long shot, and I'm going to say Marvel strikes a deal, gets the X-Men and the Fantastic Four back.
Oh, man, that'd be amazing.
And then brings it
Yoda.
all back
And
into
Yoda.
the universe,
Yeah.
and we're all happy, and one giant happy family.
I just want to see a good Fantastic Four movie in my lifetime. I doubt that will happen.
Didn't you see one already?
Roger Corman.
The Roger Corman one is the best one so far.
I don't care about a Fantastic Four movie. I just want Doctor Doom in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
That
I
would
want
be-
Galactus.
Yeah, he should be. Yeah,
Yeah,
him or
Galactus.
Not as
both.
a fart cloud.
No, real
Yeah.
giant
Giant
human
purple.
being
Yeah.
skirt Galactus.
Yeah, giant purple Galactus played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. That would be perfect. And then they just make him 50 feet tall.
Hunger.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be good.
So
I am not the fart cloud today.
now let's pivot over to the Star Wars universe. There's a new Star Wars movie coming out.
Okay.
And I only know this because the merch is everywhere. There are predictions, and you see a lot of YouTube videos saying things like Star Wars is dead. Here's why. And I watched a 20-minute, first of all, I can't believe I'm an idiot. I watched a 20-minute YouTube video about a guy just going to toy stores to show you the merch sits and collects dust on the shelves, including merch from Force Awakens.
I
Right?
can tell you why that is.
So we'll get to that. But like Star Wars, is it dying, or did they kick it off in the wrong way? And maybe it's not so much Star Wars is dead, or it's the fact that there's just too much Star Wars, right? I mean, does the market support a new Star Wars movie every year? Maybe George Lucas was right by spreading them out every 3 years. You it goes away, you miss it. Like what is?
I don't think that's no one's like.
What I'm asking
saturated.
is Star Wars dead?
No.
And
No,
if
not
so,
at all.
well, we'll go down the line. I want to
Dead to me.
It's dead. Yeah.
Pass.
Is it dead? Is it dying? Or what are the issues? Because clearly there are issues. The problems with the directors. There, been rumored that maybe they're a little micromanaging on the story side. We have. I mean, first of all, I know everyone was super excited when they announced the title of the Han Solo movie, cleverly titled Solo, which I don't think.
How do you not call that scoundrel?
Yeah, I mean, what would you call it? I feel like
Nerf herder.
Yeah, Nerf herder. Nerf herder.
you could look at almost like any of the Han Solo novelizations, and it could have been. They could have come up with a more clever title. But I want to know where you guys stand on Star Wars, and is Star Wars growing and expanding, or is it basically a Burger King commercial? Like, what is where are we now with Star Wars?
Where do you want to start?
Just like your thoughts on where the franchise is, and is it dead?
Like
And if so,
creatively
why?
or business wise?
Yeah, just
anything.
any standpoint. Like,
I think it's thriving for most people, but like for me personally, I didn't like Force Awakens because to me it felt like if you like the Beatles and you listen to Beatlemania, it was too much.
Exactly.
Like it was like
Exactly.
remix
That's a
of
good
Star Wars
analogy.
to me. But I did like Rogue One. So, so I didn't love it, but I liked it. So, but I'm also getting a little bit older and grew up with those movies. So, maybe I'm not the right person to ask, So I think some people are turned off by them, but there's still a colossal audience for them.
Okay, so now I'll completely flip that. I love Force Awakens. Did not like Rogue One. But when you look at what's going on, Force Awakens almost 2 billion worldwide. Rogue One over $500 million just in the U.S. Disney's building a whole theme park land. There is never been more Star Wars than there is right now. Now, in some ways, yeah, that's bad. I think that the biggest problem are these offshoot movies, these Star Wars stories. Because I don't think there's stories that need to be told. I don't think we need a Han Solo movie. I think my problems with Rogue One have a lot to do with the fact, especially in hindsight, seeing what happened with the Han Solo movie and Lord and Miller, and seeing what happened with Colin Trevorrow with Episode 9. My problems with Rogue One now, I kind of feel might have been a lot of kind of back channel interference from Lucasfilm and Kathy Kennedy. And that maybe Gareth Edwards didn't really end up making the movie he thought he was going to make. And I'm very curious because I had no interest in the Han Solo movie until I heard that Lord and Miller kind of hijacked it and wanted to make like this weird offshoot comedy. And I was like, I'm really interested in that now because if you're going to do these offshoot movies, be weird and daring and don't spend a ton of money and make an R-rated Star Wars horror movie or do a weird comedy, but you get to use all of the tools that you have within Lucasfilm to make these kind of official offshoot, crazy, fun, experimental movies, and just don't spend $200 million on them and do some interesting stuff.
Well, here are my thoughts on that. Is that one? I think if you're looking at the Marvel movies, the tone of each of the Marvel films sort of goes by character, and they have vastly different tones. I feel like Star Wars movies have one tone, and George Lucas wasn't able to kind of correct, get that tone right for the prequels. He kind of course corrected and did the best he could, towards the end. But I think Star Wars movies have a tone, and I think that the problem is that these offshoot movies feel weird and maybe like they don't work, which may actually not be the case. It's just that people's expectations are that a Star Wars movie will have a certain tone. And at the end of the day, really, all I care about is the adventures of Luke Skywalker or the Skywalker family, or the connected, or Crypto, if they bring in Crypto and the Skywalker dog or whatever. Okay, that's stupid, but that's what happens when a franchise runs out of steam. You get to cousins and nephews and long-lost sisters and pets of superheroes, and that's when it reaches the level of who gives a shit. So that was a rant, but Matt, where are you on
Star
all
Wars
of this?
is bigger than it's ever been, and there's no problem with it whatsoever, and it's the furthest thing from dead.
Why the toys then? Why the toys?
I'll tell you why. As a toy collector, it's because kids don't really get toys anymore because they buy video games. The toy manufacturers have accepted they have lost children from 5 to 17 to video games forever. So toys are for preschoolers and us. And people our age,
You're saying us, the old white
nerds,
dudes. Okay,
the
good.
adults. Over 18 collectors are a slice of the toy market that they weren't 10 years ago.
Huh.
And one of the reasons they sit and collect dust in Toys R Us is because people like us buy the stuff online. We don't go to toy because the toy store distribution is so spotty. We can't go and assume they'll have the figure we want, so we just order it online.
Yeah, I mean, Toys R Us they're going bankrupt.
Yeah.
It's like that's not because of Star Wars. It's not because Star Wars toys didn't tell. I mean,
No.
yeah, but
and by the way, the reason you can hardly ever find the figures you want because they ship them in such small quantities, the reason that happens is because stores ordered so many Episode 1 figures for the launch of that, and those Chancellor Valorum figures stayed there for years, and they're terrified of having stock sitting on the shelves to this day because of that movie. So Star Wars helped kill shipping action figures to stores in decent amounts. But I'll find this question to have more validity if Episode 8 doesn't do $1 billion, basically. Like,
Right.
I think we'll see kind of how it's going, but I think Force Awakens was gigantic. I really liked both Force Awakens and Rogue One, so I'll split the difference on that. I think Rogue One has a lot of Act 1 problems, and I don't particularly care about any of the characters in them for the most part, but they cut a Star Destroyer in half with another Star Destroyer, and I was 5 years old again.
Wow.
And it was great. I love Rey, Finn, and Poe in this Force Awakens. I don't care so much about the Luke Skywalker fan service in this one. I want to see what happens to Rey.
Yeah.
I love the new characters in Force Awakens.
I like to think of my Chancellor Valorum figure as my Terrence Stamp figure.
Yes,
Just so
true.
most of
So
you
ma-
here,
so I
that's
would
why I
say-
justify still having it.
So I would say if they can get this old 40-year-old Star Wars nerd to care about these brand new characters, I think they're doing just fine.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. I think the thing that Force Awakens did right was they made me care about characters that weren't Luke. So I care about them, but also they have completely missed an opportunity now for Han, Luke, and Leia to ever be together in one place, unless they do some sort of flashback, which flashback is not something that's done in a Star Wars movie in terms of the storytelling format, but they kind
they
of broke
did in
in that.
Force Awakens.
Well, they did with a force back. They that's with the touching of the lightsaber, which now they say carries memories. Which is strange, but yeah, that's something that I just wanted to see if they were going to do it. Yes, do the handoff to a new generation of characters, but I wanted to see that Trinity together again, and of course Lando too. So I hope
Lando needs to come back.
Lando needs to come back. Paul, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I haven't. The last Star Wars movie I liked was released in 1980. So I love Star Wars and Empire. Everything after that's been like either meh or ugh for me.
Right.
But here's the thing: it doesn't matter. These, I remember when Rogue One came out, and I see this a lot. I see this a lot with Star Wars. I see this a lot with DC movies. Is that people go on film online like, oh yeah, the trailer, it's gonna suck. I bought my tickets. Oh yeah, I went and saw it. I hated it. It sucked. I'm seeing it tomorrow in 3D. See if it's any better. I'll give it 2 more chances and see it. Chris, you're like, oh yeah, Justice League's gonna be awful. I've already got my tickets in advance. For the first time I see it,
you saw Batman
you're the
vs.
problem.
Superman twice, didn't
The
you?
fact is that these movies, DC and Star Wars, it doesn't matter if they're good, it doesn't matter if they're bad. They're a requirement for a sizable enough portion of the population to see them regardless multiple times and argue about them on panels. That they will make money no matter what's in them, and you could have 2 terrible DC movies, horrible DC movies, and everybody's like ready for the next one, right away. I've already got my tickets. So you have to have a real stinkers for a long time to burn out the audience. The fact is that as long as certain things are hit, people will go see them.
Well, I would argue that half the fun of seeing the movies is complaining about them.
Well, there you go. Then you're getting your money's worth.
Right.
But
right.
the point is that it doesn't matter. So my point is, it doesn't matter creatively where they're at. Financially, they're fine. And like I said, if the next one, if 8 opens up and doesn't do $1 billion, okay, well, eggs on my face. But I think it's going to do really well. And the ones in between, the Star Wars story standalone films are going to do less well because, as you said, they're not part of the main storyline, the main serial. But they're going to still do fine. Everything Star Wars does fine. The fact that some of the awful animated ones have done quite well, that have been on TV on Cartoon Network have done well. Some of the earlier ones, which are really not great. I think it's pretty idiot-proof. It's pretty. You can't really lose money on Star Wars right now.
We forget that the prequels still landed in the top 10 highest grossing films at that time.
And don't forget that Empire Strikes Back is the lowest grossing Star Wars movie, which I would say is the best Star Wars movie.
I would agree with you. It's absolutely the best.
But and that's why I'm interested in Episode 8, because Episode 8 seems to be kind of following that darker middle episode tone, and that doesn't get people back in the theater over and over again sometimes.
Right.
I got faith in Ryan Johnson, though. I love Ryan Johnson.
Yeah. Anthony, where are you?
Okay, so my issues with The Force Awakens were that there was so many things that weren't followed up on. Like we have a throwaway line about where they digged up Anakin's lightsaber. Luke Skywalker's lightsaber they lost. Same thing. It frustrates me that I get the feeling we're not going to learn a lot of the stuff that they set up for The Force Awakens unless we read the expanded universe content. I didn't get that feeling, feeling of frustration when I watched Rogue One. I enjoyed Rogue One a lot. Here's my issue and my fear for the Star Wars universe, or the Star Wars franchise moving forward. J.J. Abrams, that guy cannot complete a story for the life of him, and this goes back to Felicity, guys.
Oh my God!
Like,
Yeah,
he cannot pull off payoffs whatsoever. I cannot stand J.J. Abrams as a filmmaker. I really, really can't. And it was a very dark day in the Bench household when we found out that he was going to be the director of Episode 9. I think he's too by the books. I think The Force Awakens was very much just Star Wars A New Hope retold. I did care about the characters. I like that, you know, they gave us fresh characters, but just the way that the plot unfolds, you know, people have done YouTube videos, go check them out, but it is pretty much the same movie to me. And, you know...
Yes, don't listen to this podcast. Just go to YouTube. But the one thing is, I do think that Spider-Man will not die in Episode 8 because he's not in it. So I was going to say that theory is also... Yeah, well, we don't know that. It's
we don't know. We don't know.
What a twist.
Yeah.
I think you will get some answers because of Rian Johnson, but while I do think I was hoping Trevorrow might be replaced early on, I wasn't too confident in that. Abrams was definitely kind of a,
Yeah.
all right.
Oh, he's going to conclude it? No, he's not. He'll never conclude anything.
He's going to ask a bunch of questions and leave it to the next people to.
Yeah.
You know,
just like Force
when
Awakens.
he eats a sandwich, he doesn't finish the sandwich.
Yeah,
He just starts the
Piece of
next
bread.
sandwich. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
All I ask is everybody complaining about J.J. Abrams coming back for 9, please don't buy tickets for opening weekend, because I can't go through this every year.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Back to my
So
point.
everybody that's complaining about J.J., just on Episode 9, take opening weekend off. Don't buy tickets.
Thank you. There you go. There's back to my point.
Alan, real quick, because we only got like 5 minutes.
I'll go
wrap it
real.
up, but
The idea that Star Wars is dead, I feel like, it came from the internet. You know, came from Twitter and social media.
the internet, always accurate, but go on.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know, because we need to complain. We need to, you know, I'm probably one of the few on the panel here who saw Star Wars when it came out in theaters originally.
No, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I did.
I was a little kid, but
And I approached the franchise as kind of a 10-year-old. You know, I'm probably the one only here who actually liked Phantom Menace. I
liked it.
Yeah, but you know, right now, you know, we realize that George Lucas kind of lost it with the prequels. You know, in me, you know, Disney, Marvel, now Lucasfilm. I have faith. Pixar. I have faith that, you know, they're taking this seriously and that they want to make a good movie, and they have a track record that I'm willing to put faith in and say, all right, I'm going to give Episode 8 and 9 a chance, and I want it to be good. I really do.
And if Episode 2 didn't kill Star Wars, what can?
I know.
Right.
That's very true.
Right. Well, let's bring it on home. We've only got a few minutes left for our panel, but I want to have some final thoughts. And I did promise that we talk about lo-fi filmmaking, and maybe you can work some of those thoughts in there, because what we've observed just being at Film Thread is the number of movies that are coming in now where people are making them entirely on their phones. People are using, you know, incredibly low budget techniques to make expensive looking movies, and movies that I believe will be filled with all sorts of original and new ideas, just because the access is there and the ability to create a quality movie is available, just because of, you know, the technology and the software that's out there. And there's so many different pieces of software to do that. So we've observed, like, just coming into Film Thread, so many sort of what will hopefully be a next generation of filmmakers. But final thoughts from everyone until they kick us out of this room, which is going to be in about 2 minutes. So real quick down the line.
Yeah, I'll say something to that because I just did a small film, but it's like the wild, wild west right now in VOD. Everything is changing. Hopefully there'll be more platforms that will, like, you know, show these films. So because when you want to watch something sci-fi, there's all these things you have to go through. So hopefully they fix the VOD platforms to to get these to people. But the other thing is people really got to understand, for filmmakers, they got to learn the business side of it, because there's a lot of people now that will put your movie out and they'll see some money and you won't see $1. So you got to be very careful in that too. But it's changing at light speed right now, that whole system.
Cool.
All right, I'll be probably the slightly more negative one, which is I think that because it's sort of removed the barriers of who can and can't make a film, that we're actually at this point in time there's way too many films being made because everybody can do it and everybody's got a platform to put it out and everybody does it. And so rather than having films that everybody sort of gets together and they become a communal thing, everything became so fractured, and I find it next to impossible now to watch nearly anything because there's just way too many choices. And then on the flip side of that, what it's done is it's sort of forced the studios into this 100% blockbuster mode where now all we get are franchises and tentpoles and sequels and reboots, and everything is all about intellectual property. And we've lost kind of smaller, more personal dramas and even horror stuff. I mean, luckily places like Blumhouse are sort of taking a different tack on that, but I'm not always as enthusiastic about how many films are being made at any given time because I think it really kind of dilutes the film gene pool.
I'm going to pass because I haven't made any low-budget films yet. Get back to me in about a year. Cool.
I'm just going to recommend a film that everybody should see. It's not an iPhone-level lo-fi sci-fi movie, but it's called Dave Made a Maze. It won Slamdance, actually. Have you seen it?
I've heard, yes. I've seen the trailer. Yeah, it looks amazing. I haven't seen it.
I saw it at the Phoenix Film Festival. It was a sold-out midnight show. It's awesome.
It looks like it's made, if you look this up, Dave Made a Maze.
Here's the thing. Don't watch the trailer. Just watch the film. Because the trailer shows you a lot of the art directions. So basically, it's about this guy named Dave, and he makes a little cardboard castle in his living room. And his girlfriend comes home, and he's like, "Where are you? I'm in the castle." Well, come out. No, I'm lost. You're lost? It's a cardboard maze you made in the living room. Stand up. It's like, no, I'm lost. It's big around the inside. So she goes in to get him out, and it's this huge labyrinthian other world. And the way they did it was they just got free cardboard, and they made these incredible sets with them. And
everything's made out of cardboard.
Everything out of cardboard or craft paper, yeah. So, and what they would do is they shot in like 2 different rooms. They would be tearing one down while they're shooting in the other, and they'd go to the other one, then tear that one down. So the thing is, every single room they go into is a whole new level of like, oh my God, they thought of this? That's why I'm saying avoid the trailer, because the trailer shows you a lot of the stuff you're going to see. It's much more fun to watch. It's not 90 minutes long or 80 minutes long. It's really short, but it's really innovative and fun.
And I think that's what indie film does best, is takes a small idea like that, and it doesn't matter, because as long as you kind of set up the tone and the world, you can get away with something that doesn't have a green screen and millions of dollars in digital effects.
Just clever ideas, clever art direction, and a really Dave Made a Maze.
Dave Made a Maze.
Yeah, it's on iTunes and it's out everywhere.
Yeah, cool.
I'm also going to recommend just 2 movies really quick. One is Future 38, and it's really interesting because the way to get around all the special effects restrictions is they set it in the year 1938. The whole premise is they discovered a movie that was made in 38 that takes place in 2018. So all the special effects are just old school and really, really on the cheap side, and it's a fantastic film. I recommend everybody check it out. It's directed by a guy named Jamie Greenberg, who wrote for, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego and stuff like that. The second movie is a horror movie called Game of Death, and actually I think it's a horror movie because they released it as mini episodes, and on the DVD it's just cut together as one movie. It's about a bunch of teenagers who find this board game that basically you put your finger on it and it takes your blood and makes a pact with Satan. And you have to kill somebody every, I think, 4 hours. Otherwise, somebody who, made the pact with Satan is going to die. So there's this whole, conversation about, do I kill somebody to save myself? Or do I just, die and kind of accept my loss? But the ending is really wacky and really crazy. And so check out Game of Death and Future 38.
Cool, Alan.
And I'll say this about independent films in general, but this is, we talk about it a lot, but this is really the only way women filmmakers and people of color filmmakers are going to get their work seen and done. And so, yeah, I agree. There's a lot of independent films there, but we're giving chances to people that aren't getting chances in the studio system.
Well, it's not even giving chances.
Yeah.
When in independent film, no one gets hired necessarily to
Yeah.
work to make an independent film. An independent film is something where a filmmaker just decides, I'm going to make this. You kind of hire yourself, and that's the beauty of it. Is you don't have to wait for anyone to give you an opportunity. And I agree with you that people of color and women making films is just that's the beauty of indie film. Is there are no screens to go through. There are no levels of approval. You can just make a film and do it on your own, and that's I love that aspect of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how new filmmakers get discovered. And you've seen a lot of stuff. Is there something you care to recommend? Because I love going on that positive note of recommending something.
Yeah, I just saw it at the San Diego Film Festival, but it's called 20 Weeks. Writer-director Lena Patakar. It's just a story of parents who are soon-to-be parents who at 20 weeks find out that their child may have some developmental problems. And it really focuses on those two parents and how they deal with that situation. And shot in, a lot of time jumping, back and forth. And the thing is, we could talk diversity, but it doesn't feel like a diverse film. It just feels like a real human film, even though it stars a diverse cast and has a woman of color, writing and directing it.
Cool. And I will throw another recommendation: a film called Revenge of the Guaylo, which you can find the trailer on YouTube. Revenge of the Guaylo.
That movie is going to be the next The Room.
Yeah,
I swear.
It's going to be. Yeah, if you just watch the trailer alone, it's got its own oh hi mark in there. So look that up. Revenge of the Guaylo. It's just like it sounds. So I want to thank our panel. Everyone on our panel here. You guys are great. Jim, Cliff, Matt, Paul, Anthony, Alan. I want to thank you, audience here at Stanley's LA Comic-Con. We love you. Go to filmthreat.com, subscribe to the Film Threat podcast, and my name is Chris Gore. Thank you.